rolling.
Roll it.
Roll it.
Piss clock is on.
We are ready and back in action.
Welcome back to the Firehouse podcast, episode 45. We're here at Colca Studios. Got Ryan Mackey on the sticks. Be sure to give him a follow at Max_visuals. That's MACKS. Also go to the Firehouse podcast, or I should say volleyhousepodcast.com, to ask us questions or send in stories or videos you'd like us to review. Also, give us a follow on all social media platforms at Firehouse Podcast. And let's get into our sponsors. First one is Command Fire Apparatus. Need a reliable fire truck? Have a surplus fire truck to sell? At Command Fire Apparatus, they specialize in high-quality used fire trucks ready for your department. They're not brokers. They buy, refurbish, and sell directly to you. From pumpers to ladder trucks, they have what you need. They pride themselves on delivering a truck to you that is ready to go in service. Join the many satisfied departments that trust them for their fire apparatus needs. Experience stress-free selling and buying today. Visit sellfiretrucks.com or call 866-238-6688. Your next fire truck is just a click away. Command Fire Apparatus is a firefighter-owned and managed company. And also, iCommand Board. As an incident commander, you know that running a scene can be chaotic. Not only are you responsible for getting the job done, but you're also responsible for the members that are putting their lives at risk. As the alarms we respond to change, so does the way we're prepared to handle them. Instead of trying to keep tabs on a whiteboard or notebook, what if there was a tool that had information and checklists that you can follow as the scene unfolds? Meet iCommand Board, a tool created by a fire chief to run flawless incident command. It's made to easily carry and fit in any responder vehicle or rig. It's also designed for any calls our departments handle and can even be customized to your department's needs. If you're looking for an affordable tool to improve your fireground capabilities, visit iCommandBoard.com today.
Awesome.
All right.
Check.
Well, we got a loaded episode today.
Loaded.
A lot of submissions.
We're getting more and more each week.
Yeah, and they get more interesting each week, which is kind of fun. We'll start with our submission for Suspended or Not. When I was a cadet, we had a member who was a former Marine who liked to push my buttons by trying to engage me in roughhousing. I told the member multiple times to stop over many weeks. One day on a Monday night, we have maintenance, so I was sitting at the table in the rec room, minding my own business, when this member started trying to engage in roughhousing. I had enough and got out of my chair and jacked him up against the door with my forearm in his throat. We had the former chief sitting on the couch with other members cheering me on for finally standing up for myself. The next morning, the former fire chief drove to the firehouse, saw me and another member outside. The former chief had threatened me with a suspension if I ever put my hand on that member who had been egging me on for a while to fight back. That night, the same member was egging me on to stand up against him. I told him that if I put my hands on him, I would get suspended. The same member went to the chief and told him, why are you going to suspend him if I was the one egging him on in the first place if he put his hands on me? That day, I knew I'd gained that member's respect. And he said he was not suspended.
But he was told that he would be suspended if he got in another fight with that member.
Yeah.
So it was a more senior member, I'm assuming.
Yeah. And I've had that too. I mean,
Yeah.
When I joined, I think we talked about it a while ago, but I had one of the guys who's way older than me tied me up in a harness with a rope and put me in the hose tower and clicked and took me all the way up.
Which nowadays would be considered hazing.
Oh, yeah, but I knew, like, that was just...
I got tied to a flagpole at a neighboring firehouse.
At a neighboring firehouse?
Yeah.
Oh, that
It was
sucks.
done on purpose. You know, listen, I don't want to say it's right. I don't think we should be fighting. You know, I worked through some of those times of when fighting was kind of condoned in the firehouse, let's just say.
Who was that?
You can't say it was condoned, but it was like...
This is what I was told
It
by...
happened, And, people talk about, bringing fist fights back
I was
to
just going to say,
firehouses.
there's somebody that made that shirt recently.
No, I know there is a shirt around, but
Yeah, I forget which. It's one of the Instagram. I think we follow them.
Yeah.
But I was always told by the older guys, if you're gonna fight, it's got to be off the grounds of the firehouse.
Yeah,
That was how they handled it back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of times where it was done in the firehouse, in basements of firehouses.
I've seen it done.
And I'm not just saying in the paid world. It happened in the volleys too. I mean, it happened. It was like one of those things. And sometimes if you stood up to people, you were respected a little more. But I'm not condoning it. I'm not saying it's right. In some ways, some of the stuff could be considered hazing these days. But you do have to kind of have a backbone and stand up for yourself. But if you're telling somebody over and over again, maybe you should have went to the chief first and said, "Listen, I'm having a problem with this guy." And I'm not saying that either. Like I said, sometimes fights happen. It's gonna
Maybe he
happen.
was just thinking like, I don't want to be that guy that's running and tattling to the chief. And
I'm sure he didn't because obviously he eventually stood up to the guy and threw him against the wall. So I
and
mean,
he said that he gained the respect of that guy. That was,
and I'm sure he did.
Yeah.
I mean
that's like bullying
when you're getting.
one-on-one.
You're right. When you're getting bullied, sometimes when you step up to these people, I had an incident when I was a kid on the school bus, and I was taking some shit, and eventually I just clocked the guy right in the face, and it was over. It never happened again.
Right.
So, but people saying in these T-shirts, and I don't think some of these guys probably couldn't even survive some of those times. I think with the way some of these guys were. They were tough guys back in the day.
For sure.
And when I joined, like I said, many years ago in the 80s, you still had a lot of guys that were military, Vietnam vets, stuff like. They were tough guys. Like they're not what we have these days.
Yeah, you don't want to punch
And I'm
one
not
of
saying
those
we don't have
guys.
tough guys these days. We do have some tough guys, but you had some really serious tough guys.
Yeah, punch one of those guys and they have a fucking
They would
flashback.
They would go to fires with cigarettes in their mouth, or they didn't wear masks and crawling down hallways, and they would have trouble breathing and coughing. They put a cigarette in their mouth, and it's like, oh, I'm all better now.
That was the original SCBA, is a
Yeah,
cigarette filter.
I mean, I worked with a guy. He smoked like those Lucky Strike cigarettes, no filters, and he was a tough guy, and
Probably lived till he was like 100 years old.
yeah, he's still alive.
Yeah.
But what was interesting, I remember one day he didn't have any cigarettes. He's like got his pack and he's like, shit. So he's like, give me one of those cigarettes from another guy, and it had a filter on it. And he rips the filter off and he puts it in his mouth, and I'm like, what the hell is that? He goes, I can't smoke those things with filters.
Would have been badass if he bit the filter off and swallowed it.
Yeah, he just ripped it off, threw it in his mouth, and I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, these guys are fucking tough guys. So I'm not condoning fighting, but sometimes it does happen. And listen, we're all gonna have disagreements. We're not all perfect.
Try to talk it out.
In the fire service, especially in the volley service, we come from all different backgrounds, all different nationalities. We come from all different types of areas in business, or different types of jobs. Like, we have such a wide assortment of people, and we're not always gonna get along. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
But there's other ways to go about it. And like you said, you don't want to be a tattletale. Maybe you want to go to a senior guy and say, hey, listen, I'm having a problem with this guy. Can you take care of it? I think senior people in the fire service can really put a good grasp on the firehouse, whether it's paid or volley. It doesn't really matter. The senior people kind of, like I said, they kind of, in the past, they run the downstairs, or they run the kitchen. They run the actual firehouse things that go on, the social aspects, and then the officers is that next step up. If you can't get anything out of the senior person, then you go to your officers and stuff like that.
Right.
But, I'm not saying being a tattletale, but if you do have a serious problem, or you gotta handle it before it gets too bad.
And that's not to say like, that stuff that we're talking about is one thing, but if it's something that's like really bad that like shouldn't be happening, then go directly to an officer.
Listen, in this day and age, between EEO, harassment, discrimination, all that stuff, that's got to be handled. Like, you can't let that get out of hand. If it goes too far, if you're telling somebody over and over again, stop it, and you're not getting anywhere, you got to go to the next step. Like I said, I think the next step would be more senior members of the company or your department, see what they say, or go from there, then tend to your lieutenants, captains, stuff like that. But, try to handle things before it gets to your officers, because once it gets to your officers, then they're bound to do something.
Yeah.
And if they're not doing something, that's an even bigger problem.
Yep.
So, it's almost like a mandatory reporter kind of thing. Like, you got to do something.
Yeah, for sure. Job of the week. Got a couple of submissions here.
There's been a lot of
Yep.
freaking jobs around.
The first one is from Novellis Fire, which is in Oswego County, New York.
Okay, yep.
They had a 4-alarm fire in a 4-story manufacturing plant, multiple mutual aid from both paid and volunteer departments. The second one was from Central Bell Fire Rescue in Texas. In-house duty crew responded to multiple calls for a structure fire where they could see the glow from their station. Came through at 0300. Area had no hydrants. First due engine has 750-gallon tank. Structure was fully involved, but they were able to stop the spread to the second exposure.
Nice.
It was the first run for their new 3,000-gallon tanker. And they had it under control in approximately 1 hour, only using roughly 1,500 gallons of water. It's pretty good.
Not bad, yeah.
Pretty good stuff.
Listen, if you use water wisely, you can do a lot.
Yeah. Drill of the week.
Well,
So,
before we go, we got more fires. I mean,
Kev, rattle them off.
well, I mean, we had a pretty tragic fire in St. James
Oh, yeah.
just a few days ago. The guys made a really good push, best they could.
Yeah, I think it was
St. James
two
Fire Department,
chiefs.
Wisconsin Chiefs got in there pretty deep,
I saw the video. One of them
bailing out. the
bailing
window.
out. Yeah.
So
They definitely they
two-
went into
two people passed.
Yeah.
And
the mother and son.
the third one was alive that they got out. So tough conditions. It was a rainy day. When was that? 2 days ago? 3 days ago? I forget what it was. It was a few days ago.
Forget. I mean, that was it Sunday.
Yeah.
That video. So that the one chief that
thing
went
was
in there.
rocking. I mean, even
That's
the
what I was just
initial-
gonna say.
The initial video or footage, photos of the front of the building. I mean, it was,
Yeah,
it was
I mean that
ripping.
was rocking, and they went in and tried to get in there and get the victims, but I mean,
And they tried from all different angles.
Yeah.
I did hear something about a burst length. I don't know if it's true. So I don't know if they had a problem with water at some point. But there was something written on one of the group me's about a burst length. I don't know. I got to try to find out if that's true or not.
I wonder if it had anything, because I know that house had a lot of solar panels on it. I remember you were talking about a while ago, solar
well,
panel.
that was what was it, Selden's fire, where they had the
Yeah.
2 burst lengths.
So I wonder if maybe that could have been.
But water is always paramount, right? You get water on the fire, problems go away. That's always a big deal.
Yeah.
But we have to do our best, and I know they tried from different areas, different angles. Somebody said it might have been broken up into apartments.
I think so,
I
yeah.
don't know all the details of it. So, that could have been a factor into getting to where you needed to be.
Yeah, that video, that one chief, he came. You could see
Wisconsin
how
chief.
it was one of the Wisconsin guys. They that chief, when he was coming out that window, you could see that fucking heat.
Yeah. You could see it on his gear. It was
Yeah,
all
yeah,
black,
that's what I'm
you
saying.
could
Like
see
when he
the
came
outline
out.
and-
So I mean,
so,
valiant effort by those guys.
Absolutely. I think they, they did what they could in tough conditions, and there was fire coming out all over the place. I mean, so I don't know how it started. That's once they do the determination, be interesting to see if they had a Christmas tree up yet. I don't know if it was lithium ion or if it's just some freak accident. I don't know.
Right.
Turkey and grease inside the house. I don't know.
Yeah.
You never know. So, but it looks like they did the best they could.
Mm-hmm.
But there's been some other fires around. Who else had a fire? Wisconsin had a fire.
Yeah, that was another bad one. They've been the 4th Division
Yeah.
has been busy.
Yeah. Then I think Center Reach had a fire like a week ago. So there's been quite a few fires, and I know there were a couple in Nassau. I should have wrote them all down. There was a lot.
Yeah.
We haven't been in the studio in a little while either.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's been it's really picked up a lot. So
Train,
yes,
which
and respond.
and
Get
respond. Which brings us to Drill of the Week. So curious to know if you know the Paxton Drill. Have you ever heard of that before?
Paxton Drill.
So this, I literally
I've heard something about it.
literally just saw this. It was posted by Fort Myers Beach Fire Department.
Oh, I did see that. Yes.
Members raised numerous ground ladders
Yep.
dozens of times over
saw
20
that,
minutes
yep.
for speed and accuracy under stress. They rescue simulated, conscious, and unresponsive victims trapped in upper floors. The drill was created after the Paxton Hotel fire in Chicago in 1993, where over 100 civilians were rescued by firefighters using ground ladders.
Yeah, I do remember that.
I think it's a pretty interesting drill. You're just throwing ladders to, and the one I saw that Fort Myers posted, it looked like one of those houses that was raised. So it was almost a simulation of 3 floors. And they had all different lengths of ladders and whatnot. But
Speed and accuracy is very key. You know, and I know everybody can kind of say, oh, well, I can throw a ladder up. Anybody can throw a ladder up. It's not a big deal. Listen, you can get anything done, but the speed and your ability and everything else, right? That accuracy of throwing a ladder, or kind of estimating heights of how many rungs you need to pick it up, or whatever, or the angles, or putting 2 ladders side by side so you can get victims out.
or just understanding how to do it by yourself.
Yes, there's so many factors into laddering, and this goes with any type of procedure we do. Like, anybody can get anything done. It just may take some people longer than others because you don't practice. So think about, right, people talk about this a lot with plumbers, electricians, stuff like that. And they say a plumber came in and it only took him 5 minutes to do the job. Why should I pay him $300?
Yeah.
And you're not paying for this 5 minutes. You're paying for his ability and his talent over his experience and time that he knew to fix that in 5 minutes, right? It's the same idea in firefighting and everything else we do. So the more you train, the more you get that speed and accuracy down. Like, some people say, well, why do I need speed? Why do I have to do this? Why do I have to do that? Because that is dependent on saving people's lives. That is depending on putting fires out quicker. So the more you practice, the better you get, the quicker you're going to be. So if you time yourself in a lot of these drills, and I'm not saying you have to do it right from the get-go, but see what your baseline is, and then see, after you practice 3-4 times, how good you get. And then you'll see how much you change and how your abilities get so much better. So when we look at these plumbers, electricians and stuff, and why are we paying them what we pay them, is because of their talent. And we should be doing the same thing in the volunteer and paid services of firefighting. We should get quicker and faster at everything we do, including response. Our turnout time, getting on the road, when we get on scene, how quickly we can get off the rig, how quickly I can put my face piece on, right? That's another drill that people, oh, I can put a face piece on. Well, practice it that you can do it in seconds.
Yeah.
That you can get in. How quickly can I climb a ladder with tools? How quickly can I take a window? How quickly can I get in there and do a search of a room? That's all, built on your training abilities.
Yeah.
So you have to continue to do that so that when it's 2 o'clock in the morning, you can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Move on to some of the topics, some of the submissions that we got. The importance of a debrief after runs, even a 2-minute review of a routine alarm. Every run has something to talk about: utility locations, presence of animals, rig placement, communication, etc. What do you think?
Absolutely. So I think we can learn from every single response we go on. Even if we don't even make it to the scene, we can learn from it, right? How you got on the rig, what seat you sat in, what tools or position you took. Okay, in my department, like I said, we have riding positions, so the seat you sit in is your response and your position. So, what tools you're going to take off the rig, right? How quickly I got on. Was I fully dressed when I got on the rig? Did I have to get dressed on the rig? Was I wearing my seatbelt? Was I not wearing my seatbelt, right? Those are all learning things. Listening to the radio, maps, what side of the street is on, is there a wind condition, right? You can learn from every single response you go on. Now, let's say we do get on scene. When I got on scene, where did the rig get positioned? Was it in a good position? Was it in a bad position? Did I lay in? Did I pull up to a hydrant? Did I test the hydrant, right? So every single thing you do, you can learn from. And, knowing the buildings, seeing where you're going, what size hose line I'm going to stretch, right? Anything we can learn from. So when there is an actual fire, a lot of times we pat ourselves on the back and say we did a good job, right? Or we did a good job, nobody got hurt, everything's fine. everything is never fine, right? Did you leave room for the ladder truck in front of the building, or more than one ladder truck in front of the building, right? Where was the hose line position? Was the second hose line put on top of the first line that they couldn't get into the building? Were ladders put up on the building, right? There's so many factors. So you can look at any, and it's not about Monday morning quarterback. I don't like to do that, but I look at pictures, videos, right? Even the St. James job, I saw a bunch of pictures and I looked at certain things and I said, I would have probably done that different, or I could have learned from this, or I could have done that, right? You can look at any fire and do that.
Yeah.
But you have to constantly look at yourself in the mirror. You got to constantly critique yourself, what you did, and everybody else has to critique themselves, and then we should critique ourselves as a whole, as a unit, as a team.
I would say everything that you just said from this particular submission, if you're an officer, even just the officer on the truck, you don't have to be an actual officer, but when you get back to the firehouse, go through all those things that you just said.
Absolutely.
Depending on, what run it was, be it a motor vehicle accident, carbon monoxide run, automatic fire alarm, whatever it is. Yeah, take a look at some of those things so you're better for the real thing.
So just look in the last week, right? I think I posted on Facebook. There was a rig that rolled over in North Carolina, accident at an intersection, I think it was, rolled over. Okay, well, what happened there? Why did it happen? That rig, people got injured. Rig is now destroyed. Never made it to the scene of an alarm. Right? You look at all this stuff and say, well, how and why could that have been prevented? Right? Houston Fire Department got hit by a tractor trailer, destroyed that rig. Right? And yeah, money is always a factor and rigs and everything else, but people, right? People got hurt. Some serious injuries too, broken bones, the whole nine yards.
Right.
So we have to look at these things and say, how can I make sure that doesn't happen again, right? There are procedures out there. We learn different things, right? You got to give drivers warning, whether you're responding, coming into an intersection, due regard, making sure that they stop and give you the right of way, right? It's not always granted. Even the Houston situation, right? You're just parking a rig on a road, and I'm not saying they did anything wrong. I don't know all the details, but they parked a rig to block, to protect, which we do a lot. Did we put cones and flares out prior to that apparatus? Did we give these drivers enough warning for it to come down? And right, and I'm not critiquing what they did, but I'm just saying on a normal basis, what do? We park a suburban chief's car or a fire police vehicle in the street, and we think that's going to stop something, with a fire police person?
I mean,
or should we be putting cones back, a mile or a half mile and flares to warn people before they get there?
I look at it in terms of when we used to do runs on the Long Island Expressway, we were taking multiple lanes with the trucks and stacking the trucks keeping them diagonal. The first one would probably be the shoulder and
there's actually a formula for it.
Yeah, and it would be the shoulder and like a little bit of the, say, right lane. The next truck that was, a couple of yards down would then be the right lane and a little bit of the middle lane. And then, if we had a third piece of apparatus, we just wanted to make sure that we had enough coverage, God forbid somebody came through.
But besides that, what are we doing prior to that?
But how can we do things prior?
Start putting cones up.
Yeah, but if you're going to a wreck, say specifically on the expressway, and a lot of bad wrecks, if you have the first two units that are showing up, say in the heavy rescue and the engine, we would park so that we're blocking the scene. God forbid anybody came that way, but we're going right to work with that. Maybe fire police, when they show up, or if the highway units, the police, they would do the flares. And we would do flares every now and then, but we're not committing one of our crew all the way down. So I do see what you're saying, and I agree with it. It's just how practical is it in the moment?
I understand that, and I'm not saying that we don't do what we can, but how do we ensure or protect ourselves as best we can? Police want the roads open. They want traffic flowing as best they can. I mean, I was almost arrested once as a chief because I closed the road. But I had an intersection accident at 2 in the morning, and the cars were split apart at a distance. So we were transversing the road, and we shut down the whole road. And the cop's like, I want to open it up. And I said, absolutely not. And he goes, I want to let cars through the middle. There's no cars in the middle of the road. I go, we're transversing between the cars. Like, this is no good. And he wanted to arrest me. And I was like, this is ridiculous. Yeah, I swear to God, this many, many years ago. But it was,
That's ridiculous.
yeah, exactly. So, and nothing wrong with the cops. I understand they have to do a job too. And there's sometimes that we do hold up traffic when we shouldn't. So I see both sides of it, right? But we have to ensure that we're keeping ourselves safe, our rigs safe, and everything else. And there's ways to do that. And the police can help us, but they don't always have the resources either. We don't always have the resources as volunteers. So, the first rig usually, you want to be as close to the scene as possible within 50 feet. And then the next rig might want to be 100 feet back or 200 feet back, right? So there's spacing. And I understand people have to go to work. But if we have cones and flares, now behind that apparatus, either somebody starts walking back and starts putting flares out and, puts a triangle so that they're not riding up on your rigs, because that's what happens. They'll ride up. And you look at people driving. I mean, a person just coming here, the guy had to be doing, it's a 45-mile-an-hour speed zone. He had to be doing 80, weaving in and out of traffic. You think that guy is stopping for you?
That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't trust anybody on the road.
You can't.
And, even like that whole incident in Houston you were just talking about, this whole thing, it boggles my mind. And I know it happened to Dix Hills Fire Department a few years ago. Mm-hmm. They were on the expressway, and they had their vehicles parked the right way to block the scene. And some idiot just fucking smashes. Like, if we took a brick wall, put fucking lights all over it, and stuck it in the middle of the expressway, I can guarantee you that somebody will smash right into it.
Yeah.
It's insane.
They
so
slam into
I don't care. Like,
police cars.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying.
Because you got to understand.
They're like moths to a flame.
People are so distracted now.
Yeah.
Between the screens in the vehicles for your radio, your Sirius XM, people watching movies, YouTube, everything else. They're watching TV in their cars. Not only that, they're on their phones texting people and everything else. And we could put all the laws in place, right? And I'm not saying the criminals, but criminals don't always follow the law either, right? Nobody cares. So if you think that they're going to actually see you, they might even be blinded by your lights. And there was some studies, they were looking to do some studies on LED lights of how bright they are, right?
Yeah.
You're blinded on the road with some of these LED lights. So whether it's a headlight, whether it's a flashing red or blue light, whatever it is super bright. I mean, I've been on the road at night sometimes with a trooper pulled over, and with raining, and I could not see a goddamn thing because the whole windshield was just lit up.
Do you have like a stigmatism?
No.
So I don't have that either, but would people explain to me, what about you, Ryan? Do you have stigmatism? So what people explain to me that have that is when they look at lights on the street, like could be the brake lights of a car, the light is like stretched. Like they see it like it's like a bright star almost.
Yeah. Well, and that same thing happens when it's raining out and you got water on your windshield, right? It lights up all of those little water droplets. If you have a little fog on the inside of your window, like all of that is factors. So, when we're out there, you think people see you, they don't. And, they were looking to do a study of whether the LED lights at nighttime should be at a lower volume. Because at night, the lights are so much, they need to be brighter during the day, not at night. We don't change our lighting. Our lighting is the same all the time on the fire trucks and police cars. So, and you think about it, right? Your screen in the inside of your car, right, gets a little darker at night because you don't need as much light, like your phone, right? It automatically shades down a little bit at night. The same idea should happen with the LED lights. Maybe the LED lights at night should be half power.
I'm curious to know if they do some sort of study with like the DOT, how they just have the amber lights compared to the red and blue lights on an emergency
They say the blue
vehicle.
is the most visible light.
I could see that.
Because the red and the yellow kind of blends in with the taillights of other vehicles and turn directions and stuff like that. So that's why even New York State changed and now is allowing blue lights in the rear, because it's an actual brighter light and it's something that is not what you normally see on the roadway.
I just feel like either way, there's too many. I mean, if you see that many lights, and that one incident we had on the expressway where I had a flashlight, it was nighttime, I'm waving cars over there, moving over. One car just kept coming, and I stepped
may
back.
not see
and
you.
Bullshit. Every other car saw me, and
It doesn't
shining.
matter.
Well, I'm just saying.
You have a car that has a fog in the windshield or something going on, or maybe their windshield is all brittled because of rocks. I'm telling you, it gets difficult. I had an ambulance pass me. I had an ambulance pass me 2 weeks ago. I was coming back from the fire academy, and it was a little bit misty out, right? So I moved to the right. The ambulance goes through. Now I'm kind of behind the ambulance. I was literally blinded. I could not see what the fuck
Right,
was
but
going
what
on.
did you do?
Huh?
What did you do?
I moved to the next lane.
Okay, probably also slowed down, right?
Oh, of course I slowed down. But
that's what
I
I'm
couldn't
saying.
see.
There's so many people that if you're on the expressway, you can see like a mile ahead of you.
I know what you're getting at.
And
but
I'm just saying we have
we
to
are
understand.
more as emergency responders. We are more aware of emergency vehicles.
I know. I'm just saying I'm not opposed to
Look
building
at
a brick
people
wall
when you come up
in the
behind
middle of
them.
the expressway with lights on it and just letting those people.
They'll still hit it.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. You start weeding those people out. You know. Let's get into the next topic. Volunteer firefighters who are also paid firefighters in other areas not meeting their requirements in the volley house, but chiefs are letting it slide. What's your take on that?
It's a tough one. So you know if a person is paid, they're going to work, they're going to trainings, they're doing their work, and you know I've seen where, to me, it's a problem, right? I work for multiple different people and agencies and everything else, and I'm required to take different physicals. I'm required to take different sexual harassment classes. I'm required to take different ethics classes, hazardous materials classes, all these different classes. They're all the same, but I have to do it for each individual agency, which takes up more time.
Right.
So why wouldn't we allow certain training to carry over from one agency to another, or vice versa, and how we're doing things? So I see that side of it, but I also see the need to train with your own department. Okay, so there's got to be a fair balance. But, you know, like we look at the volunteer system and people are giving their time and you have 2-3 jobs and everything else, and I understand it's extremely difficult to meet your requirements. But if you have a fully trained person and you want to turn them away just because they're not making small requirements, or maybe they're off by just a little, that's another responder that we're losing for no reason. So I see two different sides of it. While I do believe that you need to train with your own organization, I do believe there needs to be a certain amount of things done within the organization, or some sort of quota, or, you know, meeting responsibility. But like, I mean, literally, I mean, you have a fully trained firefighter that could be available, and then you say, oh, we don't need you because you can't make a meeting or training. Like, where are we going with this?
Yeah, I agree with that.
So, you know, I just think things should be more balanced across the board, within states or counties or however you're going to do it, that they don't have to take the same classes over and over and over again.
Yeah.
To make it more worthwhile. So
I would say
there are certain things that are needed within a specific organization or have to be for that organization. I get that part too. So
yeah, I mean, like what you were talking about, like those certain refresher courses, sexual harassment, workplace violence, bloodborne pathogens, whatever it is. Maybe if those people have that at their regular job, they don't need to be coming down to the firehouse for that.
Well, some of them are required by law, and it has
Right.
to be done in that agency. So that's where I think
Right, I do know, like,
there
for
are
instance,
certain things that
when,
could be cleaned up.
When the whole, like, Me Too movement happened and they, like, businesses were mandated to take sexual harassment, I know that companies in New York City had a specific one that they had to take, where anywhere outside of that in New York State had, like, a specific one for the state, but the city had their own. But to your point, that you should be trying to come down for drill and training with your guys, because those guys are going to be different than the guys you work with.
Oh, absolutely.
But if this has something to do with the guys are not coming down for calls, then there's your problem.
Yes, I mean, like I said, you can look at this from all different angles and how it works, but, we don't want to lose responders. We want to gain responders somehow in the volunteer system. So
Right.
if there's ways we can go about that and make it happen, I think it's more beneficial.
Yeah. Next one. I don't know if you sent this or if I saw it and sent it, but conduct in the firehouse. So that story from Pennsylvania where the wife of the fire chief flashed a junior firefighter.
Yeah.
It's a tough one. That's not good. It doesn't, just because this was a male, because it's always there's that whole thing.
You hear all these people point their fingers and say, "Oh, it's a white male again. It's a white male again." And obviously, there's a lot of white men. But
No. I'm talking about it's when you have, say, an older guy advancing toward a younger girl or underage girl, it's bad. This doesn't make it any less bad that it's an older
no,
female.
I mean, listen, in the last, I think, week or so, I've seen 3 or 4 articles, 2 or 3 of them were teachers that went after students or slept with students, female teacher going after male students. And, then this came up, all in the same week. And I was just like, oh, my God, what the hell's going on? I go, where were these people when I was a kid?
That's,
right? I mean,
that's what
it
everyone
just never
says.
happened when I was a kid.
That's what everyone says.
Right?
Because
And
you had, going to school.
I don't think I would have reported it if I was a kid, but that's a whole nother thing. But anyway, you're seeing more and more this there's a lot of video out there. There's a lot of these things happen, and they probably have always happened. We just haven't seen them.
Yeah.
With social media now, news travels so fast. People have things at their fingertips at their phone. I mean, I'm getting text messages right now about flights for Joey D. I could see stuff is going on.
Well, the other
so
thing too
instant.
is once
you didn't
once
hear
the
about
news,
things for a week sometimes.
but now it's all about the clicks. Once the news channels have a tiny bit of a story, they're going to throw it out there before they even get any
They don't even know if
details.
it's a real story.
I saw something today or the other day. It was one of the big news organizations was talking about there was some listeria outbreak in cheese. But they didn't say what kind of cheese, what brand it was, where it came from. They put it up there, and then they said, go to comments for the full story. Because now on Facebook, when you click on a comment, you have now interacted with that post. They get money for that. Yeah.
So that's what they're all doing nowadays. And, look at this football coach, right? Down in, Virginia? West Virginia? Football coach disappeared. They were like, oh, where'd this guy go? And then it turns out he was being investigated for child pornography and stuff. You're seeing more and more of this stuff. And, it's, like I said, news travels fast anyway. And, you think about the volunteer fire service alone. There are a lot of junior and explorer programs. There are procedures that should be followed. Whether it's males and females or children, however, you should have procedures. You should have checks and balances. You should not have one individual alone with a kid. None of this, you go on the internet, you can find SOPs and policies out there, but you need to follow strict guidelines. And if you don't have guidelines for juniors or explorer programs in your department, you better get one, and I would suggest you get it fast, because all you need is one person to say that person did something, and you got a problem.
It's just what makes me angry about this whole thing is the junior fire department, specifically most of the junior fire departments here on Long Island are under that Boy Scout insurance.
Not anymore. A lot were, but a lot have gotten away from it. We did that in my department. We were explorers. Yeah.
Okay, so people are getting away from it, but it's still the same type of organization in a sense. The juniors should not be in the firehouse like that. Whatever situation that he was in.
Well, when I joined the juniors, I was 14 years old. So our juniors are 14 to 18. You can join the department at 18. That's how we always had it. And, You know, when I was a younger kid, I hung out in the firehouse. I had a key to the firehouse. They gave you access. You were allowed in during certain hours after school till, I believe, 9 p.m. at night. We had specific rules. You could only be in there if another firefighter was there. Like, that was the rules. So you could be there in the firehouse with another firefighter at the time, alone. Now,
That's interesting.
That doesn't happen anymore.
Oh, I bet.
mean, we have rules and procedures in place, and the kids can't hang out. You know, like, it's different. So, you know, you look at where we were and where we are today, it's changed a lot, you know. But there are still departments that still think it's like 1970 and we have nothing to worry about. You need to cover your ass. There's a lot of risk and liability when you have junior programs. So you should get on board. You should have policies. You should make sure all your advisors and instructors know what the rules are. And you should talk about the rules. You should make sure it's squared away so that you don't have situations like this happen.
I know.
And you know, it sounds like, from what I read in that article, like the kids were at the chief's house with the wife.
Oh, really? Was that it?
Yeah, like, you know,
They definitely sounds like they had some rinky-dink
So I don't
shit
know if they
going
had
on.
a party at the chief's house or something. Whatever the deal was, you know, I'm not going to speculate, but you know, you really have to have good checks and balances in place.
When I joined, we were only to be down at the firehouse when we had like drill night for
Right.
juniors.
And that's basically the way it is
Yeah,
now,
like
unless there was a function.
And if we were, when we were done, the parents knew what time to pick us up. And the instructors were waiting. We would only be in the truck bay. Doors wide open. Parents come. They're sitting there waiting for us to finish up our drill, you know, maybe watch a little bit. And then you'd go home. But by no means were you supposed to be going into the rec room or the meeting room or the kitchen or anything like that unless there was something going on that the juniors were involved with.
Yeah.
And also the department, you didn't have just any firefighter walking in to, say, get involved at the juniors class. Like, you would have to go to one of the actual instructors and get involved with it.
Say, yeah, I'm here to help out or
Yeah.
whatever.
So they really kept a good barrier between the juniors and the regular
you
members.
need to. That's,
Yeah,
that's all I'm
100%.
saying is that if you don't, you still think it's old school type of America, it's not anymore. And every kid has phone. You know, all these kids can be recording you, what you say, and you don't know where it's going to go. So I would be very cautious with your junior programs and make sure you have policy procedures in place. Make sure everybody understands what the rules are.
Yep. Next one, another submission. Older apparatus being sold out of state, but no longer good here. Let it out, Rye. If you need a good cough, let it out.
It's all good. It's going around.
This
I
seems
got my holes. I'm ready to go.
this seems like somebody from. It's got to be our area. Like, why?
Yeah, so they're selling
basically what-
apparatus to another area.
What they're saying is, why are we selling, say, a 20-year-old truck to a department out of state because it's no longer good here, but it's good somewhere outside?
But you got to understand, and you know, you're starting to see more and more of this, right? We met with that chief a few weeks ago out in Colorado, and you know, listen, it's upstate New York, it's in the Carolinas, it's in Alabama, it's in New Hampshire, Vermont, you know, wherever you go, nobody wants to invest in the fire service. Even in paid departments, they're cutting positions, closing firehouses, and everything else. It's the last thing people care about is the fire service until they have a fire. And then they'll blame the fire department because they didn't do the job they were supposed to do. So that's number one. I think America, the United States, should be investing in the fire service, and we don't. That's one. Number two is here, especially on Long Island, there is a lot of money. We have tax base. Board of Fire Commissioners can set the tax rate for their particular area. So a lot of places do not have this. They have to run chicken dinners or pancake breakfasts, or they got to have a raffle or fair or carnival in order to raise enough money just to put fuel in the trucks or to buy gear and equipment. So, you know, some of these departments have budgets that are under $150,000 or less, which most guys on Long Island would say, "Holy cow, that's insane." So they're in a tough place. We do our best, and we look at NFPA. We try to follow NFPA as best we can. We try to follow OSHA. We try to follow the rules as best we can on Long Island. And we don't even meet all the rules.
Right.
But we do the best we can here. So when you look at NFPA, you look at some of these things out there, or rules, even with paid departments and union guidelines that, first line apparatus shouldn't be older than 15 years old and stuff like that. When you start looking at this stuff, we have rigs on Long Island 20, 25 years old that are still in phenomenal shape. And, a department that's really hurting, can take that apparatus and they'll probably get another 20, 30 years out of it. Where on Long Island, we probably wouldn't do that. We wouldn't have rigs that are 30, 40 years old.
And then it also goes in, somebody else wrote in the comments, because I put it up on our Facebook, talking about deciding whether to purchase used or new. And we hit on this a few episodes ago.
Yeah,
but
well, Glenn did a great job of explaining some of that stuff. And, it really depends. It depends on what you can afford. It depends on what you're looking for. Some people like their rigs set up specific ways, so they have them done. Some people can even buy a used apparatus and have it refurbished to the way they want, and spend a little less money instead of buying a brand new rig for $1 million or $2 million. So there are avenues and availability. I think, Glenn with his command fire apparatus, they do a great job of finding use for rigs that departments have replaced their rig with a newer rig. So
yeah, this is what they wrote. How to combat shortcomings of purchasing used versus new apparatus. More specifically, is it cost effective to deal with potentially cost-draining issues with used, or just buy new? I would say, like you were just saying, call command fire apparatus.
There's a lot of
I would have to
companies out
say,
there.
with all the new shit they're putting in these trucks, they're constantly out of service because of the electrical issues and whatever the fuck it is.
There are departments on Long Island that bought motors, engines, for rigs for the future before all the DEF came in. The diesel exhaust fluid shit. They bought motors and had them crated and kept so that they could put it in a newer apparatus so they didn't have to deal with DEF fluid. When I started in the fire service, listen, we had some rigs there were still a couple from the 60s, but 70s, and the rigs were very simple. They were simplistic. There weren't computers. You flipped switches, you pulled levers, water came out of the truck. It was no problem, right? Nowadays, we have all these computers and everything else. Some of the rigs have electrical problems. A lot of them are great. The pressure governor is awesome. It's one of the best things they ever created. So there's a lot of different things, but the old style, easy to go, never had problems, but there are needs for some of these computers. There are needs for some of what we're doing, keeping track of water and everything else. So, there's good and bad to both sides of it. And it really is going to be dependent on your department, your district, your budget, what you actually need. Like Glenn was talking about, if you buy a rig with 500 gallons, he can't sell it as well as he can a rig that has 600, 750,000 because rural America is buying these used rigs. So, that's a factor that you have to look for, right? If you're in rural America, you don't have hydrants. What are you going to do with a 500-gallon tank? Not much. So, these are all things you have to consider and look at in your response area and everything else to say what works for this organization.
And on top of that, also for new rigs, the amount of time that it takes for delivery. Like if you could get a quick turnaround, you call command fire apparatus, quick turnaround on a vehicle that you need. Like that's the other part about it. If you have a truck
look at a rig that just got wrecked, right? North Carolina, Houston, like they got to replace that rig. How long is it going to take them to get a new rig?
Right, yeah.
Maybe they can get something off the line. Maybe they can find one that somebody's trying to get rid of. Maybe they have a spare. I don't know. But there are all factors you have to look at. And, with apparatus, it's a tough situation, no matter what you're doing.
Yeah, and we've talked about this a couple of times, like understanding your district and can a certain piece of apparatus fit under a bridge or can they fit into your firehouse? That's one thing I've seen a lot of lately, like in the past 10 years, is fire apparatus being built, getting delivered, and can't fit into the fucking firehouse. And that's the thing, like there's a lot of due diligence that has to be done on both, whether it's a used rig or a new apparatus, but I guess it all depends. I would honestly, and this isn't even me trying to plug command fire apparatus again, but like they get that apparatus in, they look it over, they make sure that shit's not broken, and that's what you're getting. Where some of these newer trucks, I'm not shitting on the newer trucks or people getting new apparatus, but there just seems to be a lot of shit going on.
Well, sometimes it's stuff you don't need, and that's
Right.
why it's a very important, if you're going to have a committee or you're going to spec out a rig, that you have people that really understand apparatus and understand specs. And when you have a spec, you should read through it line by line and make sure there's no mistakes, And we found some errors even with our own rigs when we bought them, threads with the wrong threads, and stuff like that. Things happen.
Yeah.
So, you have to look at all of those different areas. And, recently they just had these congressional hearings
Yeah.
with the major manufacturers of fire apparatus, and you can watch it's on YouTube and stuff. It's long, but there's a lot of good points in there, about setting the pricing and everything else and why the cost has gone up. And, yeah, we know COVID, we know supply and demand, we know supply issues. There's a lot of different things that are out there. But the price of apparatus has kind of just gotten out of control.
Yeah.
And it's going to be very, very hard. We can barely maintain a lot of these volunteer departments as it is. And now with the cost of apparatus, I really think it's going to put a lot of places out of business in the volunteer fire service. And, I've posted a couple of these that I've seen across the country. Fire departments closing up shop.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen next? Listen, we pay garbage men. We pay police officers. We pay all these different people. We don't pay volunteer firefighters. We don't pay for a lot of different things that are needed. We don't invest in the fire service, and we should be investing in the fire service because people's lives are on the line. People are going to die.
Yep.
And, just like I said, kicking this can down the road, we talked about this in the last episode. Even on Long Island, we're banging out 4 or 5 departments. That's all more risk and liability on your organization. When you call them, that risk is now on your department. So, while we think this is a great thing and we're getting apparatus come, we don't still know if they're coming. They may not get out. So
Right.
When are we going to come to the point and say, we need to do more to ensure that we're getting a proper response?
Right.
But nobody wants to do it. Maybe we do need a Suffolk County Fire Department. I don't know.
Whoa, Kev.
I don't know. Listen, you look at what they did down in PG County, right? Prince George's, what's the other county down there? Is it Prince William County? There's a couple of different counties down there. But, they have paid, they have volunteer, they have combination, they have all these different mixes all under a countywide system.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, here in New York State, we have authority having jurisdiction and all this other stuff. And, listen, I'm not saying get rid of volleys. I'm not saying that. I think we're going to need volleys, and we're going to need volleys for a long time. I just think that we've been kicking the can down the road too far, that we're going to come to the point of no return. It's just going to get too expensive to run fire departments.
Well, I think also it's there's so many factors to that, because if things still ran like they did, say, back in the 70s and 80s.
But it's not the 70s and 80s.
That's what I'm saying.
That's the problem.
No, but that's what I'm saying is there's all these requirements now, and there's also a much larger number of alarms. Mm-hmm. You have the automatic fire alarm systems now. You have the EMS service that is absolutely abused.
Oh, and it's getting worse.
And
it's only going to get worse.
It only gets worse.
My department had 3 ambulances. We have 6 now.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like,
It's
most of these
insane.
departments started with 1. Like, okay, we can help out and do whatever. But then on top of that, even residential homes are now being built with automatic fire alarm systems. That,
And they should have sprinkler systems.
yeah, and you get that too. And then
And that would
there's
take care of a lot of problems.
in the past maybe 10-ish years, carbon monoxide, automatic carbon monoxide alarms have been added to commercial buildings. So the call volume is going up. And
And it's only going to keep going up.
yeah, and we've talked about it, certain situations where maybe you just send out a chief on the automatic alarm. That way you're not committing an entire department response. And if it's the same fucking thing like here in the industrial
You got
park,
to find these people. You got to take care of these
yeah, and
problems.
that's the thing. And, we're trying to do the right thing. the big thing here with the industrial park is the majority of the tax money comes from here. Supplies the fire department real well. During the fund drive, they send big checks. If you're running in there and saying, hey, this is like the 5th time we've been here this week, we're calling a fire marshal, to write you up. And yeah, maybe you're going to lose a little bit of that fund money, but will it prevent a potential accident in the future? Like, certain things you got to look for in that.
Well, you even look at Long Island, for example, right? And I'll say it again. We have paid, I don't want to say everywhere. There's paid maintenance people that respond as firefighters. So, people to say we don't have paid firefighters on Long Island, there's paid firefighters all over the place. We have paid ambulance service all over the place. So we just don't want to call the maintenance people, the firehouse attendants, or foremen or supervisors or whatever we want to call them. We don't want to call them paid firefighters. We want to call them some other title instead of saying they're a paid firefighter. Which, okay, whatever you want to do, but I think it's the wrong way. I think we should have some paid firefighters. But on the other side of that, like, where do we draw the line and say what's right, what's wrong, right? Even with these alarms and tax base and everything else, we have to ensure a response. There's still no guarantee that somebody's going to come. And even my own department, we struggle at times sometimes. And, you listen to the radio of the, Signal 3, right? Additional manpower required, because we can't get enough people or can't get people on the road. Like, when are we going to say that enough's enough, that we have to ensure a response? Or, like you said, assign the individuals to go out and handle all the automatic alarms, all the BS, I don't know. But when do we say that's good or bad? Because now, let's say the automatic alarm does go off and we send a chief and it turns out to be a fire. Now we're delaying response even longer, which doesn't help us at all.
Right. I mean, I think a lot of this shit is such a double-edged sword, because even, like, I had to call 911 a couple of months ago for an ambulance. I was on fucking hold on 911. Mm-hmm. And there have been times where, and I'm sure you've even noticed it going to calls, where PD hasn't shown up right away. These are.
We're all struggling.
I'm not saying it's, they're taking their time. I'm saying they're caught up with other shit.
Call volume going up everywhere.
Yeah. So, but it has to be policed. There's so much of these rules and regulations in place that are so finite, and it's like, well, this shit is getting so out of control. Certain things have to be looked at and adjusted. From a top level, not from a fire department level, but
for example, you talked about the ambulance being abused, right? Sometimes I think it is. Not always. I think some of it is, most of it is pretty legit. But,
I think the opposite.
But, when you look at it, right, I think I brought this up on one of the podcasts before, but I forget where it is, somewhere in Midwest. They are triaging people over the phone.
Yes.
They have a nurse get on the phone and talk and say, what is your problem? What's going on? Give me all your information. Just like they do when you get to the ER. They don't bring you right in. They stop at the triage nurse.
Yep.
And the triage nurse decides where you're going to go or what's going to happen. And if they feel it's a non-emergent call, they'll send you like a taxi or an Uber. Instead, they'll have somebody just come pick you up.
But now the issue
or they'll tell you to go to the medical clinic instead of the hospital.
Right. The issue lies now is who's paying for those people.
Well, once again, you invest in the system, however it works.
Right.
But,
I agree with you. I'm just saying no one's going to pay for that, though.
We look at different things and we say, do we actually need to make a change? Do we need to actually change with the times? It all comes back into looking into the big picture and making sure that we're doing the right thing for people. And sometimes we're not. I mean, my department, I think we had 4 calls going on at once. And I think our dispatchers did a great job. They started prioritizing the call, right? And they had to tell some people, like, it's going to be a little longer because it was a lower priority call. We do the EMD system, right?
Yes.
Emergency medical dispatching. So, first call comes in and then the second call comes in. Well, the second call was more priority than the first call, right? And we have 2 ambulances on during the day, so it's not as bad. But, there comes a point in time where you say, what's more important, right? We're triaging people through EMD. Similar type
I agree with
situation. So can we do that with fire calls? It's very difficult because you're getting a call from an alarm company that says the alarm's going off in this building. You have no additional information.
Right.
So how can you triage that call other than sending fire trucks?
Right, but I mean, from EMS is way worse than the fire calls.
We also have a lot more EMS calls.
That's what I'm saying. Like, that's what I mean. EMS.
There's departments on Long Island doing 4,000 or 5,000 calls.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like,
It's a
getting
problem.
out of
And
control.
I would like to say that most of them are bullshit. Like, you could send them a taxi, or somebody in the house could
Some
drive
could.
that person
Yeah,
to the
some could.
hospital. Especially when you have a hospital in the fucking town that
I've
you
gone
live
to
in.
the nursing home where I pulled up and they were packed with their bags standing out front waiting for us.
That's what,
And-
like that
and
should be
shouldn't happen.
That should be the same as calling the fire department reporting a false fire. You should be fined for
Yeah,
it, or
depends
you
on the
should be
situation,
arrested.
But yeah.
I get it. We'll go to the last topic here. Encouraging members to get qualified on Apparatus. So this was something that I dealt with as an officer, where we had somebody that just wasn't fully comfortable with driving the truck. But you have people that are in the front seat. You have the same liability, if not more liability, in the front seat than you do as a driver. Right or
Well,
wrong?
The officer has more liability than the driver?
Yeah.
I don't know about that. I think the driver has more liability than the officer.
If vehicle gets into an accident, both the driver and officer.
So that is
Are gonna get hit.
That's usually a policy under your own department of how they handle that. Usually both people are going to sort of be in trouble. But who's the responsible party? Like, the officer cannot fully control the person driving.
I agree.
And you're driving under New York State law.
Yes, I agree with you 100%.
The driver is going to be held more responsible. I mean, if a driver drives into somebody and kills somebody, the liability is coming back to the driver.
I get that.
You know, can they sue everybody? Yeah, everybody sues everybody nowadays, you know?
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm just saying-
this is going on all over the place.
I'm just saying, if you have guys that are not comfortable with driving the truck, I sure as shit don't want somebody driving a rig that's not comfortable driving
I
it.
agree.
And you have to sit down with those people one-on-one and ask them. If you have
Well,
somebody
we have
that's
people
of
that
age,
want to drive a rig that shouldn't be driving a rig.
there's that. But it seems like they're having issues with getting guys that want to be qualified that are
it comes
completely
in-
able to.
It comes into a lot of things. It takes time, extra time, to become a chauffeur. Like, it's an extra thing that is not a normal requirement in the volunteer fire service, right? You don't have to be a driver.
Right.
And we don't mandate that everybody has to be a driver, right?
Right.
There are some agencies that do. You know, ambulance companies, you know, everybody's a driver when they come in. You know, we make everybody a driver, you know. And some people are better than others, right? And people that drive more are going to be more experienced than people that don't drive as much. So there's factors all the way along. How you select your people should be a process, right? And you should have certain amount of training. Like, some departments require everybody goes through evac. Some departments don't. There's some people that refuse to take an evac class because it's more training than, because they got to take evac and then learn how to drive.
Yeah.
And then learn how to pump or raise a ladder or whatever. So you're never going to have a perfect system. It's just not going to happen.
Right, but I'm saying if you sit down and you say, we need more guys to get qualified, and you see a bunch of guys out there that are Class A firemen doing the job, but they're just not jumping at the chance to get qualified, have a conversation with them one-on-one and ask them what issues they have with being a chauffeur. If they give you something legit, like, hey, I
just want to be on the nozzle. I would just want to go to fires.
that I don't know. That to me, so does everyone else.
Yeah.
But we still need chauffeurs.
Listen, personally, I think everybody should be a chauffeur.
I agree.
It's just my opinion. Everybody should know how the rig works.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody should know how to pump. Everybody should know how to throw the aerial up if you're in a ladder company. Like, I personally think everybody should. Now, are there certain people that we can look at and say, I definitely wouldn't want that person driving? Absolutely. So, you know, there's factors, especially in the volunteer service, right? In a paid service, it's kind of a little bit different because there's different criteria usually. you
Yes.
know, and more training involved anyway, and you're getting paid to do training, right? Usually, if you're going to go to chauffeur school, you're getting paid to go to chauffeur school. So it's a different avenue. But when you're asking a volunteer to do that, right, they can just say, listen, I can barely make my quota. How am I going to take driving school now? You know what I mean? So
That's what I'm saying. Look to see if they're.
but I think everybody should know how to operate everything in case something goes
Yes.
wrong, right? Your chauffeur, God forbid, let's say, has a heart attack on scene. Who's going to pump the rig? Somebody should know how to do that. So
Yeah.
you should have as many as possible being trained.
Yeah, like I said, I would talk to them individually and see what reason they have for not wanting to be a chauffeur. And if they say
I've
they're-
definitely talked
if
to
they
them, yes.
say they're not comfortable, just you could say, hey, let's just go out to the parking lot and just get a feel for it. If you don't feel comfortable with it, sitting in it and actually driving it, okay, totally understand. I'm not going to force you to drive.
Mm-hmm.
But if you get into it and you realize, all right, like this isn't as bad as I thought, okay, now let's start your process and work with them through it.
Another way to do it too is like just have a regular training on pumping. As a department training, company training, whatever, we do hose and hose lines, we do ladders, we do search, we do all this other stuff. But just have a training on pumping. And start in the classroom, go inside, talk about friction laws, talk about how a pump works, talk about all the basic stuff that you need to know about a pump, right? How water flows, the difference between pressure and volume, the difference between gallons per minute, right? All this stuff, just talk about it all, right? We learned some of this stuff in Firefighter 1. We go over it.
I do think that freaks people out sometimes, though.
But start with basics. Go very, very simple. Then go outside and let's just put one hose line into operation. And let's see what the rig does. This is how it goes into pump. You got to put it in drive, right? Go through the whole procedure, priming the pump, right? This way people understand the process. So if there is a problem or somebody doesn't know, somebody could say, hey, did you prime it? Did you do this? Did you do that? They'll know what the procedure is.
Yeah.
They'll understand how all the water flows from the hydrant all the way out.
I just remember when I when I was qualifying to be a chauffeur, I remember I'm terrible at math. And I'm getting all these fucking numbers thrown at me and everything like that.
Oh, it can screw you up.
And when you look at a pump panel on a truck, and you don't know anything about pumping, you were like, what the fuck is all this? But when you actually go into it and people just show you the mechanics of it and explain to you that, yes, you do have to have that knowledge of your friction loss and per length of hose, and if you're going up in a building, if you're hooked up to a standpipe, whatever it might be, yes. But I'll never forget one guy saying to me, just ballpark it. Meaning there's a preset on the truck, but if you got guys at the knob telling you, hey, we need more pressure, or hey, we need less pressure, it makes the whole scheme of it a lot less stressful.
There's factors that
I get that.
You have to
And
realize.
that's what I'm
burst
saying.
lengths, you got to understand.
100%.
You got to understand. There are a lot of mechanics to it that you have to get. But there is such thing called street smart hydraulics with basic numbers rounding up and stuff like that, not getting into all the formulas and stuff. And, I'm not good with math either, but, it actually came pretty natural once I started understanding
and the
process.
same thing with me.
And even with pumps, right? I mean, all these pump panels look crazy, I know, and they can be a little cumbersome sometimes, and we made our newer engines more simplistic. We made them very simple. But I can basically go to any rig, never even driven it before, and I can put it in pump and get you water.
Right.
And all it does is take me a couple minutes to just look around, and I can sit there and I say, all right, this is what I got to do. This is how I'm going to get water. And it actually happened to me once. I was... many, many moons ago, I was a chauffeur at my station, and nowadays all our rigs are the same, so it's pretty simple. You're trained on one, you're trained on all. So we made it very simple because they're all identical. But go down, I just happened to be at headquarters. We had a call for a fire. It was a boat fire, and we had no chauffeurs. Anyway, it was daytime run. This was before we had pay guys and everything, and putting out signal three. I told the chief, I said, I can drive the rig there, but I'm not qualified. And he goes, bring it down here. And we went down there with three guys, and I just looked over the rig real quick. I'm like, all right, okay, figure this thing out. Drove down there, hooked up, put it in pump, stretched the line, put the fire out. I go, am I getting suspended now? He goes, no, I gave you permission. I said, okay, I just want to make sure I'm okay, but whatever. But, if you understand pumping and understand what you're doing, you can figure it out pretty easily. And I'm not saying everybody can, and some of these things do look very confusing. But once you understand the basic mechanics of a pump and how it works, you can figure it out.
Absolutely.
So,
all right, I think that wraps up.
I think that's a wrap, yeah.
45.
Episode 45 out.
Out.